Good evening everyone, welcome once again to my YouTube channel. Tonight I'm going to speak to you about a ghost hunt that I was involved with 5 friends. And the backstory to this ghost hunt is that we have been on several investigations with the major ghost hunting groups in the country. We had gone with UK Haunted, Dead Haunted Nights, Richard Felix, to name but a few. And what we had found was that these people were making massive amounts of money out of a very gullible public. Richard Felix, we did Annesley Hall with him down in Nottinghamshire. Absolutely amazing place. And if you ever get a chance to go, if it's still open, I would advise you go. It's an amazing place. But that particular night with Richard Felix, there were about 70 guests at £55 a ticket. So you can see the amount of money which was going in. And then at the end of the night, of course, he was selling all his merchandise, etc, etc. He's a lovely guy, very knowledgeable and very, very friendly too. Anyway, we decided we weren't going to pay anymore, and we decided to buy our own equipment and start ghost hunting ourselves and not work with an audience. So there was a feeling that you needed to put a show on, but rather just to investigate paranormal happenings. We heard of a place just outside Dewsbury in West Yorkshire. This place was called Laithes, and it was just below the village of Earlsheaton. Laithes is a woodland area which used to be a typhoid hospital, a fever hospital, and also a mental hospital. The building was now abandoned, so we thought it would be a really good place to do our first investigation. We all met at Dewsbury railway station. We got in a taxi who took us into Earlsheaton and drove into the car park of a pub called the Spangled Bull. We asked him why he had stayed there, and he said that he had fear and he dare not go any further because of the stories that he had heard that had come from Laithes itself. So we paid him and got out. We set off walking, and we had quite a laugh about it on the way, thinking how so gullible people can be. Anyhow, we walked down what was called Long Lane, and it was a very long lane, and we came to some iron gates. To the right of the gates was an area called the Lagoon, which instantly brought up pictures of deck chairs and palm trees and a beautiful crystal pool, when in reality it was a sewage treatment plant. And to the left there was a pathway leading up through a wooded area to where the hospital stood. About 100 yards up the path we came across a building which stood separately from the rest of the main building. We decided to go in there first, and the entrance was quite easy because the door was basically just hanging there. As we entered, we all got a feeling of dread and a very, very cold feeling in there. A very strange smell in the air, very strange indeed. We pushed open another inner door, and there we found the reason we were feeling as we were, that there were a wall with a bank of 6 fridges with the drawers that pull out, and there right in front of us was a white porcelain mortuary slab, and right at the end of it was the headrest where so many corpses would have had their heads during post-mortems. And we did wonder just how many people in the hospital's history had actually laid on that slab. There was even the drain which would have drained the blood, the hole still there and everything. And it was a very strange feeling indeed. We took some photographs. We didn't really find anything on the photographs in particular, apart from two very, very bright orbs. We didn't think anything about it really, because as we all know, there's a lot of talk of orbs just being moisture, insects or camera refractions. Anyhow, we left there and we walked up towards the main building. The garden in front of the building was beautiful. Very well maintained, even though the hospital was shut. We walked up some steps and into what I would call the reception area, and we decided to make that our base camp for the night. We set our equipment up there before we went round to do some baseline tests, looking for natural sources of noise, cold spots through broken windows, creaking floorboards, vermin, etc. We walked up the first flight of stairs to where there was a thing, it said Ward 1. We went into the ward and there was the nurse's station there, which still had some chairs with it. There were a couple of beds, some tables and 2 or 3 wheelchairs just strewn about the place. We took some pictures again in there, and again there were a lot of orbs, but we put it down to the age of the building, the dust, etc, etc. It was at this point that we noticed again on the photographs there were 2 orbs which were much brighter than any of the others. So we were looking to see if there was anything anywhere that light could bounce off back to the camera, but we couldn't find any. We left that particular ward area, walked across a corridor into Ward 2. And again it was very similar in there. There's a horrible smell in there, and there was quite a few dead pigeon carcasses laying on the floor and various states of decomposition. We took several photographs again. Nothing much to report again that we saw. We tried an EVP experiment, the electronic voice phenomena, where a recorder was put down and we asked a question and we explained that if anybody wanted to speak to us, they could use this device to talk to us. So we asked, is there anybody there? If there is, please, can you speak? And when we played it back, quite a surprise and a shock to us, we did hear what we believe was children laughing. Very faint, but it was children's laughter definitely, without a doubt. From there we made our way up another staircase and we went into Ward 3. And every one of us in there, all 5 that were with us, we could all smell a very strong smell of surgical spirit, even though the place had been shut for years. But there was a very strong smell of surgical spirit. And as we walked through, there was a doorway off to the right which led to the bathroom. And there were 2 very old Victorian style cast iron baths with the big claw feet that were clinging to the floor. And I can remember us all thinking, my goodness, these designers, they'd pay a fortune for things like that. Beautiful things they were. We took several photographs, and once again in that bathroom there were these two very bright orbs. We left a couple of cameras running, we went back downstairs, we had a cup of coffee and a chat about what we were feeling, and we all agreed that the hospital itself did have a very odd feeling about it. A feeling of fear, a feeling of being lost, and just generally an uneasy feeling. We went back to collect all the equipment that we had. We listened to a few of the EVP things we'd left around. But again, nothing really to report, apart from we do think we heard several groans, which we put down to perhaps the building moving, and we also heard what we thought was a whistle, like a person whistling, and we wondered if that could have been extraneous. Anyhow, time was going on and the sun was about to rise. So we walked back down to the front of the hospital and looked up, and it was as though there was still something there wanting to connect with us, wanting for us to see them, and yet for whatever reason we were unable to see them and they were unable to make themselves visible. We decided on the way back down to take one last look in the mortuary. Again, as we entered the door, there was this strange smell, which we put down to perhaps our human minds knowing that it was a mortuary, that we could smell death, we could smell the formaldehyde, we could smell blood. It was very odd. We opened the second door again and faced the bank of fridges, and again our minds ran riot, wondering just how many people had been in there. For hundreds must have died in the time the hospital was operating. We flashed the torches around, once again onto the white porcelain mortuary table, and where the headrest was, there were two teddy bears, and not one of us that was there can remember seeing them the first time round. We do remember the two very bright orbs which we'd also seen in the main building, and we began to wonder just what was going on. Was somebody around taking the mickey out of us? Where had these teddy bears come from? We had a look at the bears, and they all looked to be at least 100 years old. They were very careworn and threadbare, bits of stuffing coming out from years and years of being overloved by the child who owned them. That experience actually unnerved us a little. And as we walked back towards the hospital again for a final look around, we noticed that on the lawn in front, the sun was just rising and it was shining. The dew on the grass was like diamonds everywhere. And we noticed that in that dew there were two sets of footprints. They were bare footprints and they were children. Because of the size we knew they were children. And it was at this point that we heard the laughter of children once again. We all turned to look back towards the mortuary, and there, right in front of our eyes, were two young girls. I would say maybe 10 years old and 7 years old, holding hands, and each one had a teddy bear in the other hand. They giggled, and it was the same laugh that we had heard on the EVP. We began to walk towards them, wondering if they were children from the nearby houses. And as we made our way towards them, they simply vanished into the air. So we had actually seen the ghosts that we had come to see. They had allowed us to see them. And we decided that one day we will be going back to see if we can find any of the other ghosts who are supposed to live still in Mitchell Laithes. Thank you all very much for listening once again. I hope you've enjoyed that. Please subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell for any updates. Stay safe, stay well. Until next time, Namaste.